guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. Happy Sunday to you all. It's cold, raining in Cape Town like nobody's business. I didn't want to even come here and sit in this chair and be doing this with you or for you because Sana, Ganeta, it's raining cat and dogs. Like there's no scrub. There's no time where it's like quiet. No, it's raining. Oko, 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 kesana, oko ibineta. And I don't like that. But this is what it is what it is. Anyway, so today I want us to talk about something that has been bothering most of us who are watching the Senzo Meyiwa case. And let me tell you, I'm going to do videos about a certain character. Okay, I think for that one, I'm going to go live and talk about that every day. Okay, because, excuse me, what do you mean? What's happening in this country of ours? Now, let's talk about the prosecution's biggest problem, which is the witnesses they never called. Well, when it comes to that, break the leg Gesana kind of vibe situation, because tell me why it came back to haunt them when they least expected it. Oh, it dealt with them, Gesana, a huge blow. So what if I told you some of the most important witnesses in this trial never testified? For instance, South Africans expected a lot from the state because the state came out here in the media. They did a media coverage whereby Becky and others were busy telling us about the case is watertight, etc., etc. And now where we are like, watertight where? Of course, we've been waiting for watertight. Instead, it's a house of cards collapsing under its own weight. That's what we are witnessing. So what if I told you that witnesses allegedly identified as potential Section 204 witnesses simply disappeared from the state case? Not because they chose to do that, not because they even chose to become so-called Section 204 witnesses. All right? And what if information that could potentially assist the defense only emerged much later, not from the prosecution, but from the defense witnesses themselves, which were previously the so-called Section 204 witnesses. And we were all wondering, why are you not calling them? Because you say you've got witnesses, but they are not in the witness box. So what is it about that situation that is happening? Now, ladies and gentlemen, if that is true, then we are no longer dealing with an ordinary evidential dispute here. We are dealing with a possible fair trial crisis, okay? So today we are talking about, let's take a deep dive into what may become one of the most controversial aspects of this entire Senzo Meyiwa murder trial. The prosecution's handling of witnesses, very questionable in all angles, Kesana, because Sana, what do you mean? What do you mean, Ukuti? This is how you people are doing things, all right? Because the courts do not convict people based on investigations alone. Courts convict people based on evidence, tangible evidence, and evidence must be tested. Let's unpack this, Kesana, point by point, because Sana, if you look into you do a deep dive into this situation, you get shocked all the time, all right? Number one, what is a Section 204 witness? Let's quickly do a recap when it comes to that. For viewers who may not have understand the legal terminology, a Section 204 witness is a witness who may have participated in a crime or has direct involvement in a criminal activity or in criminal activities. In exchange for a truthful testimony, that witness may receive indemnity from the prosecution. But there is a catch. The witness must testify openly. The witness must answer questions. The witness must be cross-examined. And most importantly, the judge must determine whether the witness has told the truth. This system exists because the criminal enterprises are often secretive. Sometimes the insiders are needed. However, Section 204 witnesses are amongst those the most dangerous witnesses in criminal law. Why? Because they have motives. They want to save themselves. They may want to shift the blame. They may say whatever investigators want to hear. That is precisely why courts insist on rigorous cross-examination. Secondly, the question that refused to go away when it comes to the entire situation. The question is simple. If certain individuals were allegedly regarded as important enough to be treated as potential Section 204 witnesses when it comes to the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial, why were they never called by the state? Akiribati, they have witnesses. Ukininda claimed that they have multiple witnesses that are willing to testify against the 5 accused, but none of them in that courtroom on behalf of the state. Isn't that weird? Isn't that weird? Now, this is not a small issue. This is a massive issue, guys, because if a witness was central to building the state's theory, abandoning that witness raises immediate judicial concerns. Concern number 1, did the witness change their story? Concern number 2, did the witness contradict the final state narrative? Concern number 3, did the witness refuse to cooperate? Concern number 4, would cross-examination have exposed serious weaknesses? These are not speculative questions. These are the exact questions a judge would ask, because you said you've got people that are tangible, people that are going to show the defense flames. Where are they? Do you see? Now, number 3, the danger of ghost witnesses. Now, this is where our questions come from. Why are they ghosts, these witnesses, yet you claim to have them, Gininda? Now, one of the most serious dangers in criminal litigation is what we call ghost witnesses. These are people who are whose alleged information influenced or influences the investigation, but who never appear before court. Their statements exist, investigators rely on them, decisions are made based on them, arrest may even follow, yet the court never hears from them. How? Make it make sense, Kaluga. The defense cannot cross-examine them. Why? You said you've got witnesses. The judge cannot assess their credibility. The public cannot hear their version. That is extremely problematic because evidence hidden from judicial scrutiny is evidence that cannot safely be relied upon. A court cannot convict on invisible witnesses, which is exactly what Gininda expects Judge Rata to do. Do you remember when he also claims that Ntanzi has plus minus 30 cases? He has a lot of cases. Do you remember? But cases Dololo, he has never brought a printout to show that Ntanzi is the so-called criminal that he accused him to be. He painted Ntanzi as a bad, horrible criminal. And even a gun smuggler, but Gininda can't prove any of those accusations. Literally nothing. Part number 4, did the defense expose what the state did not disclose? And this is very interesting, Kisana. This is our point number 4, where its defense was like, you're not bringing these people inside the courtroom. Let's hear why. Because there is no way that you can be firm and stand on business with their names or their alleged statements and stuff, yet you don't bring them, but you trust that what they say is their best and would sing these accused, bring them in. And the defense was like, I'll show you how it's done. Perhaps the most uncomfortable question is this: did information emerge through defense witnesses that should have emerged through the prosecution itself? If the answer is yes, the consequences are potentially very serious, because the prosecutors have constitutional obligations. Their duty is not simply to secure convictions. Their duty is to ensure justice. That means disclosing material capable of assisting the defense. That means disclosing contradictions. That means disclosing alternative version. That means disclosing information that may undermine the state's own case. A prosecutor is not permitted to hide behind strategy. Justice comes first, convictions come second. And if material information was withheld, the defense immediately gains a significant ammunition. before we even go further with, this is point number 4, other points, ne? Do you guys remember that Ugininda never told us about the arrest of Gwabini, Makosonke, Shoes, and whoever else was arrested? Because when Shoes was talking about, he spoke about other people from KwaNongoma, which we don't know who they are. So there's a lot of people that were arrested, but Ugininda never said anything when he was talking about these things. All right. He made it seem like the 5 IQs are the ones, and it's always been there. Now, point number 5. So before point number 5. So for me, it comes to the situation of disclosure was not done properly. Oh, it was not done properly. Number 5, the prosecution's biggest weakness. In my view, the prosecution's biggest weakness is not necessarily the number of witnesses. It is the inconsistency in witness strategy. Consider this. Some witnesses are treated as central, others disappear. Some statements are relied upon, others are abandoned. Some versions are embraced, others are ignored. A judge notices all of those things. Judges ask, why was the witness called but not that one? This one is called, that one is not called. What's going on there? And why did the state abandon this line of witnesses and dealt with this other side of witnesses? Why was the contradiction never explained? Why did the defense discover information independently? Why is state the state never talked about these things? These unanswered questions slowly erode confidence, and credibility is everything in criminal litigations. Number 6, what would concern a senior judge? If I were conducting a judicial assessment, the following will immediately concern me. First, failure to call key insiders. Second, failure to explain why important witnesses were abandoned. Third, failure to disclose contradictory material. Fourth, heavy dependence on investigators instead of direct witnesses. Fifth, allow crucial information to emerge only during the defense case. Each one of these issues chips away at the credibility or reliability of the prosecution's overall narrative. One issue may be survivable. 5 issues together become very dangerous. Number 7, the nuclear question that we have. Here is a nuclear question. Was the investigation evidence-driven or was it suspect-driven? What was happening? Or because if investigators selected suspects first, then searched for witnesses to support that theory, the entire foundation becomes vulnerable. The criminal justice system demands the opposite. Evidence first, suspects second, not the other way around. Once a court begins suspecting that witnesses were selected, discarded, or managed to fit a preferred narrative, the prosecution enters extremely dangerous territory. Because what do you mean? You've arrested a lot of people. As a result, if these people can come in front and be telling us about the dates of their arrest, you will be very shocked as someone who watches the Senzo Miwa case. Now, at the end of the day, criminal trials are not won through press conferences. They are not won through public opinion. They are not won through dramatic allegations. They are won through credible, tested, reliable evidence presented openly in a court of law. The biggest question facing this prosecution may not be whether the witnesses testified. It may be why certain witnesses never testified. And if the defense successfully demonstrates that material information was withheld, ignored, or suppressed, the consequences could be devastating for the state case. Because in criminal law, fairness is not optional. Fairness is the foundation upon which the conviction must stand. And without fairness, justice itself is put on trial. So I don't know, what did Gininda trust when he was busy doing this? What do you think is happening here? Were important witnesses deliberately abandoned? I say yes. What are your thoughts? Or was the prosecution simply exercising legitimate strategy? I say no. Wena, what do you think? Now leave your comments in the leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. The trial will continue on the 20th of July, 2026. I'll see you on our next video. Bye-bye.